throwaway account. I have never told this story publicly before. For years I tried to convince myself it was just a moment that happened in the past, and that it was better to leave it there. But the truth is that night has stayed with me ever since. Sometimes it returns in dreams, sometimes in random moments when I'm walking alone at night, and I remember how quickly things can spiral out of control. This happened many years ago in a city I no longer live in. At the time, I was younger, reckless, and honestly drinking far more than I should have. There was a corner in that part of town that everyone knew about. It was one of those places where broken streetlights flickered, where buses stopped late at night, and where people who had nowhere else to go would gather. Drug addicts, people with untreated mental illness, drifters, and sometimes men who were looking for easy targets. I had just left a bar a few blocks away. I remember the night air being cold and the street almost empty. I was walking with a bottle of cheap whiskey in my bag, trying to get home. As I reached that corner, a woman suddenly ran toward me. At first I thought she recognized me. She ran up and hugged me tightly without saying anything. It caught me completely off guard. For a moment, I even thought maybe I actually knew her from somewhere. Then she stepped back and started talking rapidly, almost babbling. Her words didn't make much sense. Her clothes were dirty, and her hair looked like it hadn't been washed in days. It quickly became clear she was one of the many people in the area who struggled with addiction or severe mental health issues. I tried to calm her down, but after a few moments, she simply wandered away down the sidewalk. I stood there for a bit, confused, not really sure what had just happened. A few minutes later, she approached another man standing near the bus stop. He looked to be around 50 years old, maybe older. At first, I didn't pay much attention, but something about the way he reacted made me uneasy. Instead of pushing her away or ignoring her, he grabbed her. He pressed her back against the glass wall of the bus stop shelter. I could hear his voice clearly now, low and cold. "You're coming home with me tonight." It wasn't a question. She looked down at the ground, shaking her head violently while he kept touching her. She was mumbling something under her breath, almost crying. I remember feeling a surge of anger that I couldn't ignore. Years earlier, when I was still in school, an exchange student at my school had been violently assaulted in an alley not far from campus. The whole thing had shaken the community. For months afterward, I had nightmares about walking into that alley and finding it happening, about trying to stop it and beating the attacker senseless. Seeing that man with this woman triggered all of those emotions again. The problem was I was drunk, very drunk, and courage mixed with alcohol can turn into something reckless very quickly. I started yelling at him from across the sidewalk. I don't even remember exactly what I said. Probably insults, accusations, anything to get his attention away from her. He turned toward me and shouted back, furious. For a moment I backed off. He looked bigger than me, heavier, and clearly aggressive. Then he grabbed her wrist and started dragging her toward a dark alley beside the bus stop. That's when she screamed. The sound cut through the quiet street like a knife. Something inside me snapped. My hands were shaking. I remember tears in my eyes, a strange mix of fear and anger. I reached into my bag and pulled out the whiskey bottle. I shouted at him again. Before I could even react, he rushed toward me and punched me hard in the face. My vision went white for a moment. Instinct took over. I swung the bottle as hard as I could and hit him in the side of the head. The sound was sickening. The woman ran. I saw her disappear down the street without looking back. But the fight wasn't over. The man staggered, then lunged toward me again. I hit him a second time. This time he fell to the ground. What happened next is the part that still scares me the most, as I didn't stop. I hit him again while he was on the ground, and again, and again. The last strike shattered the bottle across his face. Glass broke everywhere. I remember seeing blood and realizing what I had done. In a final moment of blind rage, I dragged the broken edge across his cheek. I don't even know exactly where it landed. It might have hit his eye. Then everything became quiet. The adrenaline drained from my body all at once. I ran. I ran down the street without looking back. A few blocks away, I collapsed behind a dumpster and threw up. I was shaking uncontrollably. That was the first and only fight I have ever been in. About 10 minutes later, I heard sirens in the distance. Someone must have called the police. That was the moment I realized how serious everything had become. If the police connected me to what happened, I could be in serious trouble, maybe even prison. I left that area immediately. Within a week, I left the city entirely. I never went back. To this day, I have no idea what happened to that man. Sometimes I wonder if he survived. Sometimes I worry that he didn't. But another part of me hopes that if he did survive, that night forced him to confront what he was doing. Maybe it stopped him from hurting someone else. I also never saw the woman again. I hope she found help somewhere. I hope she escaped that life. What scares me most about that night isn't the man or the fight. It's realizing how much violence I was capable of when pushed to the edge. For years afterward, I became a little afraid of myself, because in that moment, when anger and fear took control, I didn't recognize the person I had become.